there's this infamous story arc in this anime called the anime is called The Melancholy of Heart Suzumiya. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah, this is probably the millionth time you've mentioned it to me.
Is it?
I feel like you talk about this anime
it's a really long
frequently.
It's a really long name, so it's pretty memorable. Anyway, the story arc is called The Endless Eight, and it's infamous because the part of the plot in this arc is that the main character and the characters around him are caught in a time loop wherein the events of the episode are repeated over the course of 8 episodes. So it's the same episode, basically, over 8 episodes. Now, there's different camera angles and stuff, but it's the same episode. And it starts out sort of the same way, where the dude starts kind of noticing some weird things that he feels it's like deja vu, like he's seen him before. Mm-hmm. And then eventually he realizes, oh shit, I'm reliving the same events I've lived before. I need to find some way to figure out how to get out of it. And for the first 7 episodes, he doesn't manage to do it, right? Like it doesn't work, and then everything resets. It goes to the next episode, and he's forgotten everything that happened from the previous one. In episode 8, he finally manages to figure out how to get around it, and he resolves the problem. But the payoff isn't really that great. Like, it's not worth it, but it's infamous because it's kind of like there's a lot of people that think the creators are trolling people watching the show, because there's no reason to watch 8 episodes of this fucking arc. There's no real difference to it, which is why a lot of people recommend, if you're actually watching this, to watch like episodes 1 and 2 and then skip to the last episode, because now when I first saw this, I watched all 8 and I knew about this but I was like, I kind of feel like I need to, so I can appreciate what people were talking about. Don't fucking do that. It's not worth it. It's not worth the payoff. And the reason I bring this up is because it kind of feels like we're in this same situation, right? Like we are in constantly a day-to-day loop of things that just aren't changing, and
we do every single day,
right? And we're just trying to find a way to get out of it. This is kind of our endless 8 right now, or our
endless 1 million.
Yeah, or our infinite isolationism, or whatever. It's so this is like never ending, and I don't know when it's going to end. It feels like things are getting better in some respects, but in others it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think we're in like a unique situation because of where we live, and there's been a lot of stories about states that are kind of going back to normal. Barbershops are opening, nail salons are opening, retail is opening, and we just got another 30-day extension for stay at fucking home.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of depressing around here. It's really not much to do besides the ins and outs of everyday life, working, cooking, cleaning. That's about it.
Yeah, it's very repetitive. At this point, I think you're nearing 2 months, right? I'm over 2 months by now.
Yeah, my last day of work that I went in was March 13th. So Today is the 11th.
Yeah.
So by Wednesday, it will be 2 whole months.
Yeah. Luckily, we in particular have not really had too many issues in terms of getting things. We still have had access to food. We still have plenty of toilet paper, and other supplies. But I think for a lot of people, the stress is starting to get to them, because I
think just the isolation in general, like we just celebrated Mother's Day yesterday, and a lot of my friends were like, oh, are you gonna go see your mom? I'm like, no, I'm not going to go see my mother. Like, we are still in isolation, and there's been a lot of talk about doing what you think is right for your family. And I think in certain situations, like, you can go see your mom or your dad or whatever it might be. But for instance, like my mom, she works at a doctor's office and she's still going in because she's essential. So for her, it's like she doesn't want to put us in a situation where she could be asymptomatic and then come over to our house and spread the virus that way. And even though we haven't been working, I mean, we have gone to like a couple of places, whether it's like to go get food or necessities or whatever it might be. So, I mean, for the most part, we've been pretty much isolated for the past 2 months, but she's been working. So even if I wanted to go see my mom, I mean, I could like social distance and whatnot, but do I really want to risk that? I mean, my mom has like underlying health issues and whatnot, which under normal circumstances are completely preventable with medication and whatnot. But with the whole virus and everything, it's just like a risk that you're not really willing to take.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we're kind of just hoping things slow down soon as we get into the summer. Another thing that kind of makes things depressing is just when it gets warmer out and you're just like, I can't go anywhere, you know? Like,
yeah.
Because at least where we are, it's not really that warm very long in the year. You get like a couple months and then it's cold again. Mm-hmm. So you kind of try and take advantage of the warm time you get, which not really being able to enjoy much.
I mean, luckily we have like our deck that we can go sit on, so we can still like get outside and everything. And the neighborhood that we live in is, I guess you would say, pretty closed off from the rest of like our area. So to walk around our neighborhood is okay. But because it is a neighborhood, you have everybody with the same idea. So depending on the time of day or when you actually go out, you could potentially run into other people. And the state of New Jersey just opened their parks, I want to say about a week ago now. Mm-hmm. They opened all their parks and recreations. Wildwood Beach actually just opened this past Friday. So they're open. A lot of the parks or a lot of the beaches are opening, but you can't, even though things are opening, it's not the same. Like, you still have the social distancing. You still have to wear a mask when you're going. Like, to me, that's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to go to the beach once it gets warmer and just like lay and relax on the beach and whatnot. But if I have to wear a mask, I don't think I would want to go.
No, it makes things really uncomfortable. You know, I don't even know how you would handle, like, what would you even do there? When you take off your mask before you go into the ocean and then put it back?
I have no idea. There's just so many variables that we haven't really thought of at this point. And to be perfectly honest, I like, even though summer is on my mind, because like you guys know, I am a school teacher and I teach kindergarten, and we're kind of like trucking along trying to get through the school year. And summer is on my mind for the most part, but more so in a sense, it's like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life for 2 months while the rest of the world goes on and they're working? And it's kind of like, okay, well, I should probably just teach summer school remotely then, because I literally have nothing else to do besides sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. And to put that into perspective also, there's also the underlying questioning. It's like, what are schools going to look like next year? And that freaks me out and stresses me out to no end, just because there are so many variables that we don't know yet. And for me to wrap my brain around teaching 5 and 6 year olds remotely next year when I have never met them is a whole new nightmare in and of itself. And then if we aren't teaching remotely, how do you get a 5? It's not even going to be, they're not even going to be 5 at that point. They're still going to be 4. How are you going to get a 4 and a 5 year old to be 6 feet apart and wear a mask all day? You're not.
Yeah.
They pick their nose and they pick their ass all day and they sneeze on each other. And then they come and want to give you a hug. Like, there's literally no way to keep any type of virus or germs or whatsoever away from these children. So that is my ultimate stressor right now. I guess we shall see where the coming months lead us.
Yeah. All I can say to that is, welcome to the club.
I mean, at least for you, though, your job really hasn't changed all that much. I mean, it has in a sense where you're not going into the office and there's more of a stressor on virtual platforms versus other things that you guys were working on previously. So I think for you, even though you like are stressed because you're probably doing a lot more work than normal because you're trying to push out all these different projects within like a specific time frame, there's like a whole other realm of stressors that goes with like virtual teaching and trying to social distance with little children that don't know what personal space is.
Mm-hmm.
They literally don't even know. Like at the beginning of kindergarten, you're teaching them like how to sit on the carpet because they literally cannot do that. You're teaching them how to get into line because they literally cannot do that. So just the fact that school is going to look probably a lot different next year, it's just like, I don't know. It's like what I'm constantly thinking about. Oh, love me, Mr. Oh, Mr. 知らされるほど切ない二人だけの危ないゲーム Love is war, love is war, love is war. Welcome to our daily life. But on that note, I hope you guys are surviving quarantine and making do with what you guys have to do, and that you guys are safe and healthy and that you're getting what you need in this pandemic that we are in. In other news, we are going to kind of change a little bit of our format that we have been doing recently, where I pitch either a show or a movie to Mike and he does the same to me. We're going to do a little bit something different. We're still going to have the warm-up where we talk a little bit about the different TV shows, anime, whatever we're watching. And then we're going to do a little bit something different. And I'll let Mike talk about that.
Yeah. So first, welcome.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good cold open there.
Yeah. Welcome to our life.
I am Mike, your host.
And I am Ashley.
And this is the War and Love podcast. So as Ashley said, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I gave Ashley an assignment, and she didn't finish it. So
in my defense, so the idea around the whole entire podcast is like we talked about, he gives me a show or a movie and I watch it. I'm in this like stint where I feel like I just need to do something mindless. Like after the whole entire day of doing work and meeting with my children and virtually conferencing with them, I don't want to sit down and like watch something and take notes on it. I am all for watching something new and enjoying it for what it is. But if I have to take notes on it right now, I am just not into it, to be perfectly honest with you. I will get back to it. That's part of the reason why we're taking a little bit of a left turn for this episode, but also to kind of keep it fresh and to kind of give you guys new material that we normally don't talk about.
Yeah, I know that the last time we did this was a couple episodes ago where we didn't stick to the normal format, and I think the feedback for that was pretty good. That was also ad hoc. This one is sort of ad hoc, but we do have a bit of a format to what we want to do. So to start, we're going to go right into the warm-up.
So like I have talked about, I've been talking about just watching different things kind of mindlessly. For me, I really haven't caught up with like any of my shows because at this point, it's more like background noise to me once I kind of check out for the day. And it's just kind of like something for me to listen to in the background and not really pay a whole lot of attention to what I'm actually watching. So last time we've been talking about, I'm still watching Vampire Diaries. I am on season 3 of season 8. We're kind of chugging along, and it's really nice to kind of go back and watch the characters develop from what I know that they are going to eventually get to. So it's cool to kind of see their storylines again and pick up on things that you that I didn't notice before. Other than that, there really hasn't been a whole bunch of stuff that I have been watching per se, just kind of keeping up with the TV shows that I was watching previously. I've been watching 911 and How to Get Away with Murder. So How to Get Away with Murder is in its final season, and it's kind of going back, and it's now kind of taking the main character, whose name is Annalise, basically to court to kind of prove that she did all these crimes that the FBI and the government were trying to pin on her. And it's kind of like full circle because her students are kind of going against her. They're giving their testimonies and whatnot to what is going on. And you can kind of see all the loose ends from previous series and previous seasons kind of come up and be tied into a nice little bow. So they're kind of like bringing back all these different characters and reminiscing on other characters that either were killed or whatever it was. So it's an interesting season, to say the least. It's probably going to be wrapping up within the next 2 or 3 episodes, I would say. And then 911 is just kind of like one of those things that you just follow. It has a new kind of overarching idea or plot for each of the different episodes that you're going into. We were kind of just left on a really big cliffhanger. And if you are a 911 fan, I won't ruin it for you in case you haven't seen it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. Mainly Vampire Diaries though. And then I'm still watching Hunter x Hunter with Mike. And we are almost at the end of the York New City arc.
Yeah.
We just got to the point where Killua, Gon, Kurapika are kind of going into fight the Phantom Troop kind of like boss or
Cruella.
leader. Yeah, whatever his name is. So Gon and Killua were basically they acted as bait in a sense to kind of get the leader abducted away from the spiders. So they're trying to figure out a way to get their leader back, but they're in a sense of they don't know whether they should put the whole unit as a whole at the forefront or kind of put the leader at the forefront. So they don't know if they should follow suit and not listen to the warnings that Kurapika gave them, or if they should just continue and just follow and kill Kurapika, but then they know that the leader will die.
Right.
So I'm interested to see where the arc is going and then what will come next.
How are you liking the arc so far compared to the other ones?
I mean, I feel like this is even though it's the third arc?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't count the one where they try and rescue Killua, then yes.
Like that's not, to me, that's like 3 episodes, so it's not really.
Yeah, it's technically the third major arc. Yes.
Exactly. So this one, compared to the actual like Hunter exam, I liked because it kind of tied the Hunter exam up into a nice bow where they had to learn
Nen,
thank you. So I liked that one. I really liked though the other what was the one before
Heaven's
this?
Arena.
Yeah, I really liked Heaven's Arena. Because it was kind of like your taste of what Nen is. Don't get me wrong, I like this one. But I think I like Heaven's Arena a little bit better at this point.
Yeah, and the next one, you start getting into Killua and Gon, learning more about Nen, specifically developing their own Nen. And you see other characters in Nen a little bit more.
Yeah, because I found it interesting where Killua and Gon's kind of like Nen experience was tracked a lot better than Kurapika's was. And his was just like, oh, well, I'm a master now of Nen. But it didn't show like how he got to that point. So I think that's the reason. I think that's what's missing for me in this arc is that you follow this person who is basically a master at Nen, but they didn't show his like growth to get there. Mm-hmm. They show like little tidbits and whatnot, but it's not the story how like Killua and Gon's was.
That's fair. What do you think of the Phantom Troop though? How do you like them?
I think they are very interesting. I find it a little bit, I mean, granted I get why they have like the all powerful members who basically whoever fights them, they can't beat them. I'm hoping though that for this arc specifically for the Phantom Troop and the spiders, is this all we're gonna see of them in?
No, they do reappear in a later arc.
Okay. I don't really know, to be perfectly honest with you.
I love the Phantom Troop because they're not just like the typical, I'm bad, yada, yada, yada. They're very complex, like where one of the characters dies, right? His friend gets upset, know, and he starts crying and shit. That's, in a normal, like, stupid cartoon series, right? Like, the villains just don't give a shit. They'll, like, if one of them dies, they don't care, right? In this, you start seeing, like, yeah, they're evil. Clearly what they're doing is wrong, but they do care about each other, and they're also very, like, into the fact that they're members of the troop. Like, they're really excited about, they're like, yeah, I'm a member of the troop. I'm awesome. And shit. It's cool.
I like in a sense where all of their, I guess you would say, powers, their nen abilities are all very unique. I think whoever came up with their abilities was very creative in a sense of how they did it. Whereas you have like the common, like, I guess like mind reader or whatever it is. But then you have like somebody who throws a dart at somebody's neck and then can control them through a phone, which is completely crazy. And you would never think in a million years that was possible, obviously. But in the same sense, it's like all these different things are really cool to see. I think my favorite one is the girl with the thread who helped Hisoka when he was fighting in the Heaven's Arena arc. Yeah, the Heaven's Arena arc, where she basically sewed his arm back together, which was really freaking awesome. So I think that one is my favorite out of all of them.
That's cool. Yeah. We're going to probably talk about that more. Because the next arc is the Greed Island arc. I like it a lot. There's people that don't like it as much because it is kind of longish, but it takes some time to explore Gon and Killua and their growth, which if you like that, you're going to like this arc.
Cool.
Okay.
What about you? What have you been watching?
So I've been watching an anime called Dorohedoro. This is technically a Netflix exclusive. It is going to be released, the first season, in a couple weeks, but it aired in Japan already, and they already have the episodes subbed, so...
What the hell?
Sailed some high seas and managed to get them. And it's pretty interesting. It's based on a manga that's finished, I think, a little while ago, and it's in a world where there's a bunch of magicians, but not your type of magicians. Like, I
was like, what? A magician?
Yeah, like, they have these abilities where they, like... It's hard to explain. They, like shoot out smoke, and that smoke can accomplish different things. Like, there's one character that uses it to heal people. There's other characters that use it to, like, just attack for, like, various means. And they all, like, live in this one world where, like... It makes it sound like the magicians are, like, fucking with the world when they use magic, that it causes a problem with the main world. There's, like, zombies and shit like that rise from the grave, and these magicians, like, live in a separate dimension where they will constantly go back and forth from that dimension into this world to fuck with it. And the main character is this dude with a lizard head who does not remember his past. He remembers being a human, and he has, like, this human head inside his mouth. And he believes that a magician is the one who made him appear this way and wiped his memory. So every time he encounters a magician, he puts their head in his mouth because the other head that he believes is his is in that mouth, and it's alive. and that head asks the question and like basically says like most of the time like you're not the one, like you're not the magician, and he then pulls the person out of his mouth and goes like, what did the head say? And they'll always say like they said they're not the one. He's like, okay, then I don't need you, and then he kills them. It's a really vicious show, but it's pretty cool. And this is just the first season. I'm interested to see where it goes from here, but it's pretty cool. I like it.
It definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool show. Other than that, I've been rewatching an anime that I actually tried rewatching last year. It's a pretty old one that I liked when I was younger, that was airing on Toonami back in the day, that I remember was great, but when I was rewatching it a year ago, I was like, why did I like this? Because it's okay, but it's not that great. It's Outlaw Star. It's like kind of a space western thing where like there's essentially these people called outlaws that are in space and they're trying to fight. Like it's hard to explain, but it's a 90s ass show, right? It's a 90s ass anime.
I remember you talking about this.
It's really okay. So I started rewatching it again because I was like, I kind of want to see this. I want to see if I can get through it because I'm interested in it. And I feel like if I just, because the plot itself, like the main plot, is not that good. But if you accept that and understand that there's a lot of crazy, wacky adventures that these characters are going on, then you'll enjoy it, which I kind of am. So there's another show that came out around the same time, and that show is Cowboy Bebop.
I was gonna say this sounds really similar to Cowboy Bebop in a sense where you talk about they are basically
they're bounty hunters.
Yeah, in space.
Yeah. I will get to that at some point, but it's not really good to compare the two because while they do have similar settings, Cowboy Bebop is more about exploring personal like characters and everything like that and their relationships, and it is very episodic in the sense that like every episode they do something different. It's very self-contained. There is a greater overarching narrative, but there is every episode self-contained. This is kind of like that, but what the difference here is like it's like the first 6 episodes they try and like build like a narrative that they think they can continue throughout the whole 26 episode run,
and they can't.
And then they just are like, fuck that. Let's just do like, just do shit every other episode. And then they do that. So I'm going to try and finish this. I feel like once you get over the hump and you start accepting like, okay, the overall plot is probably not that good. And the plot itself isn't great, but it is fun, so.
Fair enough.
We'll see. And then lastly, we've been watching this show together. That is...
We mentioned it, I think, last time that we said that we were going to attempt to watch it. And we did. And for everyone that has seen our last episode, if you remember, we started talking about Too Hot to Handle. Now, let me preface this by saying that we watched Love is Blind. And a lot of my friends that watched Love is Blind had recommended me watch the show because of the fact that I liked... quote unquote, Love is Blind. So I pitched it to Mike, and he had heard of the show, but wasn't particularly, I guess you would say, knowledgeable of the premise of what was actually going on. So when I explained it to him, he basically was like, this is dumb, number one. And the idea around a whole money prize was not thought through in the way that it probably should have been. So for any of you guys that has not seen it, the way that the show works is they find all of these horny people that swipe right or swipe left, I don't know which one it is, on Tinder, and has a one-night stand with people. And they are never committed to one person. They go through countless people, and they have trust issues, and their whole premise is basically just to have sex with as many people as they can. They're self-centered, they're egotistical, whatever it might be. They're all about themselves. So they find all these people. Now, granted, probably about half of these people are from the UK.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking weird.
Well, I did Google this, and it is actually produced by a UK company.
Okay, so I guess that makes more sense. So I would say half of the people that are on the show are from the UK. There's one person from New Jersey.
Yeah.
There's one, I think, from Florida.
Florida.
Or did she go home?
Was
Was that Haley? I think she went home.
she went. Yeah.
So there's one from Georgia. There's a couple from like Australia.
2 from California.
Mm-hmm. So it's all these people, and literally the first episode that we watched, I did not know if I was going to get through this episode. It is your typical, if you want to think of the girls in the sense of, these girls are your typical like sorority girls, like, oh my god, basically, like literally, oh my god. These are the people that are showing up in the show. They're in these tight ass bikinis. They're basically naked in a sense. The guys are your typical frat guys, partiers. The what?
They're chads.
Yeah. They are into themselves. They're egotistical. The guys refer to their penises as like basically gods. I cannot take this show seriously, but in the same sense, I am absolutely hooked to this show. I don't know, how many episodes have we watched? I think like 6 or 7.
I think 6, yeah.
Yeah. And this is one of Netflix's shows where they come out weekly because, you know, everyone has to now change to weekly in order to continue to get subscribers in this day and age. So I think they're on episode like 8 or 9. So we're just about caught up.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that it basically works is that these people are put on this island or wherever the fuck they are, I don't even know. And they're put in this house with all these different strangers, and they have $100,000. Now, the $100,000 is a collective group of money. And every time they kiss or do heavy petting, quote unquote, or have sex or whatever it might be, anything sexual, there is a deduction of a specific amount of money that is taken from the pot. Now, you would think, like, to us, you just don't have sex.
Yeah.
But to these people, that's how they live. That's how they live and breathe every single day. So for them, it's completely out of the normal to not have sex or to not masturbate or to whatever it might be. So for them, it's like a completely new atmosphere. And you kind of follow all these different characters, and it's their come to Jesus moment, kind of, about how they should put commitment and getting to know each other at the forefront versus just being sexual with somebody else. And it has this robot called Lana or whatever it might be, and she kind of guides them on the right spiritual direction and sexual experience. So, needless to say, it's been pretty interesting. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's definitely very trashy.
Oh, 100%. It's one of those shows that you can kind of just, like, get lost into mindlessly.
Yeah, mindless is definitely the right term. Yeah, I mean, it's captivating, just like a car crash. Yeah, I mean, I'm watching it, okay? Like, it's something that's keeping me interested. I can't say, like, I can relate to anybody on that fucking show.
No, definitely not.
Because they're all pretty shitty people for the most part. Although, I will say that the David dude is probably the nicest dude on that show. The British dude who's, like, the nice guy. Who,
the one with, like, the faux hawk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still kind of a tool.
He's my favorite out of all of them. I feel like he's made the most personal growth since the beginning of this whole entire thing. I fucking hate Harry. I cannot stand him.
Yeah, he's a douche.
He's the biggest douchebag ever. And his girl that he's been, like, fucking with, Francesca, she's also a complete douchebag also. I don't know. Yeah. And Chloe gets under my skin. Now, mind you, the people that are on this show, they are like 20, 21-year-olds. The oldest one you said was what, 29?
29, yeah. He's just the same age as me.
Yeah. So all of these people, number one, which I actually found really interesting because I would have thought they would have been a little bit older, because you think about 20 and 21-year-olds, that's what they're doing. They're fucking people. That's literally what your 20s are about. For the majority of the people that are in college and whatever it is.
I was going to say, speak for yourself.
Okay, well... Shut up. But that's 9 times out of 10 somebody's college experience. They're getting to know themselves. They're getting to know other people. And so for them to make a complete show on commitment at the age of like 21 is kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have told me that you're doing the show with like between like 28 and 35, I would have been like, oh, okay, I can see that. But the whole age thing kind of threw me off once we started talking about that.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But yeah, and yeah, it was, because I did look it up on Wikipedia later, because I was like, how fucking old are these people? Because a lot of them look like old. I mean, like, there's people that are in their 20s on that show, and I'm like, you look older than me.
Yeah.
And it might be because they're just jacked, but it's just like, I mean, like, if I were to be on that show, you'd probably be like, you're like 21, right? I'd be like, no, dude, I'm 29. They'd be like, you are? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, they'd probably be like, you look fucking young. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and you're not. Maybe having sex is fucking burning through your fucking life. Maybe you shooting off your fucking loads is like, after every time, it's like burning a fucking year.
I don't know. I mean, we will definitely continue to finish the rest of the season. Like we said, we're pretty much 90% done with it at this point. So, I mean, we'll see what happens at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have really any expectations. I don't really give a shit how it ends, because I can't say this is a good show. It's a show. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. If you want something to pass the time, because you have a lot of time, then yeah, it's a show that will do that for you.
If you also watched Love is Blind and quote-unquote liked the show, I would definitely think the show is definitely up your alley, because it's similar in a sense where it's completely ridiculous but also entertaining in the same way.
Yeah.
So
that show again is too hot to handle. Good luck.
Yeah. Try to get through the first episode, I would say, at least, and give it a second chance, because like I said, the first episode was very painful for me to get through. But after the second episode, it becomes increasingly addicting just to see the ridiculousness unfold.
Yeah.
So, without further ado...
Yeah, we're going to go right into the main event. All right, so as we were saying earlier, this episode's going to be a little bit different. Normally, we pitch ideas and we talk about the shows that we recommend to each other. We go into detail and then we rate them. This time, what we're going to do is we're going to break down our top 5 favorite anime. Now, I've seen a lot of anime, so my list is pretty ironclad. It doesn't change too much. Usually just the top 5 might shift positions a little bit, except for number 1. Hasn't shifted in a while. For Ashley, it's a little bit harder because she's seen some. She hasn't seen as much as I have.
I've seen about, I would say with movies included, upwards of like 20 to 25 different either shows or movies. The thing with me is when I tried to rate the different animes is I found it very hard because a lot of the things that I like are very similar. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have a whole plethora of anime to kind of choose from where it ranges in genres from either romantic comedies or action or anything else under the sun that might fall. And a lot of or actually not even a lot, all of them you have seen because they've all become recommendations from you. Because I never watched anime until we were probably married. Like even when we were dating, I didn't even watch anime to the extent that I watch it now. And granted, I don't watch it a lot, but we'll probably pick like 1 or 2 different shows every once in a while to kind of work our way through. And there's some that I will fall off of. I know you tried to get me to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I think I watched like 1 or 2 seasons, and I was like, I'm fucking over this show. And then another one that we watched, what was the one with the big giants that are basically people?
Attack on Titan.
Yeah, Attack on Titan, which I actually really enjoyed. I don't know why I fell off of that. I kind of want to go back and pick up where I left off. So that one's not on my list because I didn't finish it or am not currently watching it successively. So my list will probably change as I continue to watch more and more anime. So we're going to go through our list. Like we said, take mine with a grain of salt because I have only watched a handful of animes. Mike is a lot more versed in the world of anime, to put it lightly. And he has a lot more, I guess, knowledge of different types and genres of them. So we're going to start with our list. We're going to start at the bottom because we said it was going to be 1 through 5. So we'll start at the 5th one. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. And so we're going to kind of give a little summary for each show, why we liked it. If we go down the list and we have ones that we have in common, we're not going to give as much detail in terms of the summary. We're probably just going to go into like why we liked it.
Yeah.
So my number 5 is an anime called Baccano. This anime came out in, I think, 2006. What I like about this series is, number 1, it's only 16 episodes. I believe I've talked about this series before on this podcast, but I'm going to go into a little more detail here. What makes it pretty interesting is it explores multiple characters' stories. There's probably like at least 8 characters that they explore, and it's over a couple different timelines. There's like a plot with some of the characters back in like the 1700s, and then it like fast forwards to like the 30s, like 1931 or something, and then it goes to like 1933, and it keeps jumping back and forth throughout the season to all these different timelines. And initially, it's kind of confusing because you're trying to keep track of like what's happening here, and they do all coalesce into a greater narrative that's going on. And the first time you watch it, you are confused, and that is intended to be that way, just because you are jumping back and forth through the different timelines and the different characters. But when you rewatch it, because this show is perfect for rewatching, now that you know the story, it's perfect for that scenario because you start picking up on things you missed the first time. Because you were trying to understand the story, the second time you watch it, you're like, oh shit, I missed that. I didn't notice that before. And it's fantastic. All the characters are different and fun. It has a supernatural story to it, you know. I
feel like you tried to get me to watch this at one point.
Yeah, I think you were confused by it initially, which is you're supposed to be confused by it. That is the intent.
Gotcha.
You're not supposed to understand what's going on all at once. The further you get into it, you start piecing together what's going on, and by the end of the story, you're left pretty good. I will say that this series does not really have a conclusive ending, which is for 2 reasons. One, it's based on a series of novels that have yet to finish. In a way, I kind of like that, because it does end in a way that's just like, okay, if they don't continue this, I'm okay with that. I feel satisfied. So even if there is not a sequel, I'm good with that. And there's probably not going to be a sequel because it came out in 2006. It's 2020 now.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I would highly recommend it. The dub is fantastic. It's one of the few anime that has, in my opinion, a better dub than the sub. And all the characters are really amazing. The acting is fantastic. There's a couple characters that have really good voice acting that you're just like, wow, man, like the way that this person like did this scene is fantastic. How they matched it to not just the lips but to the tone. Music is amazing. I've had the music on pretty much at least half of these episodes as like a background song. So again, the anime's Baccano. Highly recommend it.
Cool. My number 5, I said, is Food Wars.
Okay.
I absolutely loved this series. I think this was probably one of the very first animes you kind of got me into. And the reason why I love this anime is because it's so ridiculous in a sense of just their reactions to how food is. So to give you kind of like a quick backstory, it follows this main character named Soma who wants to follow in his father's footsteps to become this world-renowned chef. So he goes to the culinary school and his father basically pushes him to go there. And he goes to, I think it's the Totsuki Academy.
Yeah.
So he goes to this culinary school where he takes the entrance exam, and the premise is basically like no first year, whoever tries to get into the first time never makes it through the first time around. So he obviously makes it through the first time around just because of his skills and who his father is. And his father is a graduate of this quote unquote school, and it kind of just follows him with learning new skills and cooking different dishes and him making friends with a whole plethora of different eccentric characters, to say the least. And every time they make a recipe, it's like they have an orgasm. So the first time I watched this, I sat there in awe and was just kind of astounded by the way that they portrayed the different emotions and the different ways that, or the different feelings that these characters are having towards food. And you would literally think that these characters are having sex with food because of the noises that they're making, the different graphics that they're showing. Half the time they're naked, and it's just like one of those shows that is ridiculous in a sense, but there's also a really good plot behind it as well. Every season it changes kind of gears, and it's still following Soma as he's progressing through the culinary school, and he wants to get to, what is it, the top 8 or 9 or
the 10. Yeah, he wants
the
to be
10.
the number 1.
He wants to be the number 1 spot. So it's him doing different battles, and I just really, really loved this series, mainly because of how ridiculous it probably was, to be perfectly honest with you. And we actually did fall off of it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think we actually finished it in a sense because it took a weird turn, or I don't know. It was just, it didn't follow the same way as the beginning series and the beginning seasons were flowing, and it was just, it got really weird. But needless to say, I would say up until, I think we watched to what, like season...
We got through most of season 3 before we fell off.
Yeah. So, and I don't even know what season they're up to right now, to be perfectly honest.
They are towards the end. The manga has ended recently.
Oh, it did end?
Yes. The last main story arc is not great. So yeah, we got, they're I think they're on like the 5th season is airing now or something. But yeah, I think it's like one of the last seasons they're going to be doing.
Yeah, I also like how some of the recipes, like I even know, like we tried one of the recipes from the anime. So a lot of the recipes that they are making, they are available for actual like cooking, which is kind of cool too, because we like to try different Japanese, I guess, esque type of dishes. So to kind of bring that in and kind of bring it to real life was really cool also.
Yeah.
So that was my number 5, was Food Wars.
Cool.
Number 4.
Yeah, so my number 4 is Steins Gate. This is a 2011, I think it's 2011, anime. It's a science fiction anime where the main character is in his like early 20s. I think he's in college, and he is kind of eccentric, but it's obvious that it's an act that he puts on. And what he's doing is he's in this quote-unquote lab. It's just like an apartment with him and his friends, and he's trying to do experiments. Now they're kind of just screwing around. They don't actually think anything's going to come of it, and he ends up accidentally discovering how to perform time travel. And by that, I don't mean like he himself can go back in time. He has found that he can send objects back in time, albeit that initially it doesn't work out well. Like the first one is a banana.
Yeah,
They put in the
I
microwave.
very clearly remember watching the first couple episodes of this series. And number one, I was confused and I didn't get it, so that pissed me off. And the second thing was the girl's voice. I cannot. Her voice is annoying to no end.
Okay. Well, I can easily glaze past that because you haven't watched enough anime, and that's not really that big of a deal to me.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so while time travel is definitely a huge piece of this story, it does take a turn. The first few episodes are slow for a reason. They're trying to establish these characters. For each episode, you kind of learn more and more about the characters in the cast. And what they're trying to do is kind of slowly lead you to this position where you start liking these characters, kind of like they're putting you up these stairs, and then you don't realize when they get to the top that there's a drop. And then in the middle of the season, it's like they push you off the fucking top of the stairs because a huge thing happens where it kind of fucks with you. And the whole rest of the season is kind of like a downward trip where they're trying to undo what happened in the first few episodes. So that first few, like 10 episodes or 11 episodes or something, like, is building and building and building because it makes the second half feel that much more weighty, you know? And when I first saw this series in college, I was interested because I like science fiction anime, especially series, especially ones that have a good grounded time travel story. Because it's really tough to make a good time travel story that actually seems, I don't want to say real, but feasible. Like it's grounded, it has rules that are hard to break. Because a lot of series will just throw out fucking time travel like it's a MacGuffin. Like there's no real, like there's no rules to it. They're just putting it out there, and it doesn't actually. There's no sense to it. This actually does have rules that they follow, and so that interests me in the beginning. But as you go on, you start becoming interested in these characters, and you start learning more about this character, Okabe, the main character, and how it's very clear that the fact that he is kind of crazy is an act. Like, he's not actually crazy. He's just putting it on because he finds it fun to do that, but you kind of start descending into madness with him because once you get to that middle part, he himself, it starts admitting like that he's doing this all because he initially was acting this way just for the hell of it, and that he doesn't want to keep doing this because he starts getting crazy from all the events that happen, which you can understand what's going on, why he's feeling this way. And so it starts becoming a lot more psychological, which I like. And then when you get to the end, there's a point where there's like towards the last couple episodes, there's something that happens that ties everything back to the very beginning. And I love that because it's another reason why, another show that you can easily go back to and watch from the beginning, and you're just like, fuck, I missed that. Like, I thought in the beginning, like, this was weird. Why didn't... And then when you, like, actually get to the end, you're like, that's what that was. And you're like, it makes it, like, way more interesting to rewatch it. So, Steins Gate is one of my favorites because it's a great sci-fi series. It has good characters. The plot is, yes, it is kind of long, but there's a reason for it. So, I'd highly recommend you watch it.
Okay. Maybe we'll have to give that one another go eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4 for me was Erased.
Okay.
I really, really enjoyed Erased. Partly because it's kind of like a mystery in a sense where to give you kind of a little bit of a backstory, it's about this guy who has this ability to kind of, I don't want to say like time travel, but it's probably the best use of term in this type of, I guess, genre for it. So he gets to a point where he's almost witnessing his mother's murder, and he in order for him to, he wants to basically stop his mother's murder, in a sense. So instead of going back just either a couple hours or a couple days or whatever it might be, he goes far enough back to where he can basically undo a lot of other things that have been going on at that time. Now, at the same time, there were a bunch of kidnappings going on, and these children were going missing, and they couldn't figure out who the kidnapper was. So in the process of him saving his mother's life as well, or trying to at least, he is trying to uncover the kidnapper of the 3 or 4 children that were kidnapped, because he feels like if he can figure out who the kidnapper is, then he can stop his mother's murder from happening. So the reason why I like this one, and the reason why it's my number 4, is because, like I said, there is that sense of mystery, and going through it, you can kind of see who the kidnapper is / murderer is. And like once you finish it, you're like, oh shit, I probably should have picked up on that a long time ago. But the way that they do it is, in a way, kind of artful. And it kind of just keeps you guessing and wanting to know more. Kind of tried to unravel the mystery that is. It almost kind of reminds me of How to Get Away with Murder, because it gives you like the end result, but then it like goes back and it shows you like how you got to that point. So, but this way is a little bit different because now you're trying to reverse what was already done. Mm-hmm. The characters I felt were really awesome. They had a bunch of growth in it. Just following the different ones, especially the main character, his ability is really awesome to see. Because initially when he first figures it out, he only goes back like a little bit, and then the overarching plot of the whole entire series is him going back like way far in advance. Obviously, like we said, to try to save his mother from being murdered. And I won't give away obviously what happens, but at the end you're just like, oh shit. Like it was a nice mystery murder type of, I guess you would say, series, in a sense where it probably isn't my typical anime that I would go towards. Mm-hmm. Where I would be like more like either lighthearted or romantic or whatever it might be. So like this, for me, when I really, really liked it, stuck with me. And that was one of the reasons why I picked it. So I had a really hard time picking between that one and Your Lie in April.
Okay.
So
yeah, I liked the race too. It was pretty good. It's not in my top 5, mainly because it is really good. I do enjoy it. The ending I feel is kind of weak, but it is for the most part a really good series. There's a lot of good character interactions. I'd say I enjoyed like 80% of it, and the other 20% is okay. But it's a good show. I'm not gonna bash it. It's a good show. I enjoyed it.
Fair enough.
My number
3
is Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter we've talked a lot about.
Yes.
I don't feel I need to go into too much about this, but for those of you who don't know, Hunter x Hunter, simply put, explores the story of Gon, who's like a 12-year-old kid, and there's a couple other main characters, primarily Killua, who's another 12-year-old kid, except he's from a different background.
To put it lightly.
Kurapika, who is a survivor, the last survivor of a clan that was murdered, and Leorio, who's the oldest of the group, who is trying to become a doctor in order to help prevent people from dying from...
Who you think is like 30 years old, but he's like a teenager, which is really weird.
Yeah. Anyway. And it explores these characters' journeys, and it focuses more on Gon and Killua, but it does kind of, as you get further into the story, a lot of anime will center around their characters, their cast, and the story is mostly about them, and every other character is secondary. What's amazing about Hunter x Hunter is it starts out that way, but the further you get into it, you start learning just how little these characters really matter in the grand scheme of the world, right? There's a lot more going on around them, and you haven't gotten as far into it, but you start really just seeing how kind of insignificant those two characters are compared to just everything else and all the other people there. And you start to just, it really is great because it's like, there is so much going on, you know, there's multiple settings, there's multiple other characters with motivations, but they don't even give a fuck about Gon and Killua, you know, like they don't mean anything to them, right? And I like that about a series where it's just like, you know, you don't need to just focus on these characters. There's more that happens in the world than just two people, right? Their character interactions, their growth is amazing. Killua is probably one of my favorite characters in the series just because he goes through so much. And Gon does too.
Yeah.
But Killua he starts out as this kid who's like, comes from a family of assassins, and he is, you know, and he's just fed up with it. You know, he doesn't want to do it anymore. They want him to become like the head of his family, and he's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go off and do my own thing. And you find as you go through the story that when he meets Gon, he really just wants to be friends with Gon. And that is it. Like, he doesn't give a shit about, like, you know, being better than Gon. He's not trying to, like, really just one-up him and everything. He initially comes off as that way because he, you know, he's arrogant.
It's just his persona.
Right. But as he gets further into it, his persona starts getting broken down, and eventually he just wants to be with him. And it becomes more heartfelt further on in the story.
You can kind of already see it, though. I mean, even when Gon went to go rescue Killua, it was heartfelt in the way that Killua didn't think that he would ever have a friend do what Gon and Leoria and Kurapika do to come and basically save them from his family. And I think that was the first time that you actually saw the actual true bond between all four of them. Now, granted, I feel like the bond between Killua and Gon is probably a lot stronger than all four of them together. So that's kind of interesting to see. But then even his family was like, oh, well, you never had a friend come and visit. Like, why would they be a friend to you? Or there must be some underlying reason for them to want to be friends. And even at the end of the first arc for the Hunter x Hunter exam, when his brother came, he was just like, why would you ever want to be friends with him? Like, there's no reason for you to want to actually do this. So I really like their friendship. I would definitely see, I mean, granted, I'm only a few arcs in. It's a friendship that I hope will continue to grow over the course of the remaining arcs in the season. So Hunter x Hunter fell on my list also, but I won't tell you what number it is yet.
Yeah, we can get into a little bit. You can give a little more of your thoughts when you get to your piece, but I'm not going to, you know, the only thing I'll wrap up on is it is a long series. It's like 140 some episodes, but it's totally worth the wait. I'm going to go a little bit into, you know, how it's related to something else in a bit, but it's an amazing story with a lot of arcs that, you know, build on each other, but they all feel fresh, and it's got a great power system that is unique, and like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's one that, because of the way it's designed to be fresh. It's designed to where it's just not like Dragon Ball, which I love Dragon Ball, but the problem with it is that it gets to a point where it's just people with, you know, I have a bigger power than you, so I win. And it gets kind of repetitive. This isn't like that because of the way the system is designed and the way the characters are designed. So it's worth the watch. It's a good chunk of it's on Netflix. Not all of it is, but I feel like it's going to start trickling in more. Other than that, you'll find it somewhere in this plethora of the world wide web. So what's your number 3?
Okay, my number 3, and I think you might be a little bit surprised by it, is Your Name.
Okay.
This one was really hard for me to place this movie because I kept on going back and forth between this and Weathering for You. And I came to the conclusion, obviously, that I liked Weathering You a little bit better, and I'll go into that one when I actually tell that one for my list. But this one, I really, really enjoyed the story. The overarching plot is essentially these two people switch places, and this girl becomes a guy and the boy becomes a girl, and they don't know when they're going to switch places at all. They could one day wake up as the other person without a moment's notice, and when they switch places, they have no recollection of actually switching places. So what they start doing is recording it in a journal, so that way the next morning when they actually wake up as who they are supposed to be, they can kind of read the journal and figure out what actually was happening throughout the day. Now, this is kind of, it goes back and forth with that and whatnot, but then you have this overarching kind of idea, and I forget the
Don't spoil the
specifics.
twist.
Yeah, I forget the specifics of it, but basically what happens is there's something that is happening at the not even at the end, but towards like the middle to the end, that they're trying to fix. Mm-hmm. And the whole show just beautifully unfolds, and the growth in the characters, the music is fucking fantastic. I love this soundtrack. Love, love, love it. It is continuously on loop in my classroom for my kids, and they have no idea what the fuck they're listening to, but it's just like a really calming type of music atmosphere. It's the characters are really relatable, and it's just a fun story to kind of watch unfold, and they become essentially like best friends through the course of this whole type of thing, what is unfolding.
Yeah.
And I can't really tell you much more than that because it will give away the big plot twist. But definitely, if you're into just like a feel-good movie, I definitely would 100% recommend this movie. I cried my eyes out at the end of it. But, I mean, granted, that's not saying a lot because I cry at everything. But it's like one of those things where you just want to watch it over and over again. It never gets old. There's always something that is going to be new and exciting when you're watching it because you notice something completely different the 14th time you've seen the movie. And it's just beautifully directed, and I really can't speak highly enough of it. So if you have not seen it, definitely after this podcast, go download it and go watch it.
Yeah, I also like Your Name a lot. It's what surprised me the most when we first saw it is I had seen other films directed by the same director, and most of the films he made up until that point were good, but I wouldn't call them happy films. They always kind of ended with a sour note. You know, they were kind of bittersweet. And when we first saw this, I was waiting for that because I had seen his other movies. Mm-hmm. And when it didn't, I was kind of surprised. I was like, wait, there's going to be a happy ending? What? But, I mean, other than that, like, it looks amazing. It's picturesque.
Oh, 100%.
It is some of the best animation I have ever seen. Still, that along with Weathering with You is some of the best animation I've ever seen in an anime. It's amazing how like beautiful everything is done. And as Ashley said, the soundtrack is still fantastic. I still have it and play it pretty frequently. Yeah, It's a great movie.
Yeah, there's really nothing bad that I can say about this movie, and I think you would probably agree with me.
Yeah.
It's just one of those movies that I feel like will stand the test of time over the next couple of years. And even as more movies come out by the same director, hopefully it will just continue to get better from where we're at. So,
yeah.
Number 2.
Yeah, so my number 2 is Yu Yu Hakusho. This is a 90s as fuck anime because the manga is also a 90s as fuck manga. It first started serializing in 1990. I think it finished in like the mid to late 90s or something. But the anime came out a couple years after that. And there's a few reasons why I love this series. So, some background. The person who made Hunter x Hunter made Yu Yu Hakusho.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he made Yu Yu Hakusho first, and then he made Hunter x Hunter after. And
so you like Yu Yu Hakusho better than Hunter x Hunter?
Yes. I will say this. Hunter x Hunter is a better anime than Yu Yu Hakusho. But I love Yu Yu Hakusho more than Hunter x Hunter. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I saw Yu Yu Hakusho first. This was something that was airing when I was on Toonami, like when I was growing up. And it's a show that when you watch it when you're like in your young teens, it really relates to you because it's a lot more personal, I think, than Hunter x Hunter is. Now, there's good personal relationships in Hunter x Hunter, don't get me wrong. But for Yu Yu Hakusho, what makes the series interesting is that there is a power system. It's not like Hunter x Hunter's. It's a lot more simplistic. And it's mostly just people getting, like, summoning, like, different spiritual skills where they get to attack people with it. It's not that complicated. And a lot of people's powers are specifically related to their emotions. And the main character, Yusuke, is this, like, 14-year-old kid who is a street punk. Like, he's already good at fighting and shit like that. And he's, like, a rebel. Like, everyone in school, like, hates him because they're, like, you know, he's powerful and shit like that. And the teachers hate him. They always talk shit about him. His mom is, like, he has a single mom who, like, just barely gets by, and she's fucking, like, drunk all the time and shit like that. So he's obviously fucked up. But despite that, he's still a good guy. Like, he does get into fights. He does fucking, like, go and smoke and shit like that. But he's a pretty good guy. He has this girl who, you know, who's a childhood friend who cares about him, and he cares about her too, but he doesn't want to admit it because he's a fucking tough guy. And what the series explores is how when he opens up, when he starts, you know, like, letting his emotions out and shit like that, that directly affects his power, and it grows as he, like, starts accepting himself. You know, there's an arc that's still my favorite arc in the whole series. It's the Dark Tournament arc. Pretty much every arc in shonen series, because it's a shonen series, has a tournament arc. Fucking Hunter x Hunter has a tournament arc. Every series basically shonen series has a tournament arc. This is the best arc in the entire series of Yu Yu Hakusho, and what makes it so good is not only do you see a bunch of enemies with all their different powers and shit like that, but this is the point where Yusuke, the main character, is eventually, you know, he's up against this enemy because they are invited to this tournament, and by invited I mean they are forced to go to this tournament by this enemy that they fight earlier on in the story who is way above them in skill. And he basically tells them, like, you will go to this tournament and you will beat me, because if you do not defeat me, I will kill you and your entire family and everyone you love, and, you know, and shit like that. So you're going to this tournament. If you don't go to it, everyone's gonna die. And so basically he has to train before he can even go to it. And then even when he gets to the tournament, he's still learning and shit like that. And there's, like, this huge, like, as the arc continues, there's just stakes are building for this final showdown between him and this guy and his team. And he finds that, like, before it even gets to that fight, that he's being held back by his emotions, because, like, a part of him is afraid of this guy, right? This dude, like, is a fucking brick shithouse. He can take him down easily, and he's terrified of him. But what he learns is, like, you know, it's not just the guy that he's afraid of. It's himself, you know. He's afraid of, like, his own abilities. He's afraid of, you know, opening up and shit like that. And then when he learns that, you know, he needs to just, like, let shit in, he finds he can overcome it. And I find that when I was a kid, when you're a teenager, you're dealing with a lot of like emotional like issues. You're trying to figure out who you are, and that's what makes the show like really so impactful. Is because like it's just like it's kind of therapeutic. It's like, maybe I do need to like just kind of like let I'm fucking dealing with issues and stuff like that, and it's kind of heartfelt. It's not as long as Hunter x Hunter. It's like 112 episodes. There's 4 major arcs. I will say there's some problems with it in the sense that it's a 90s anime, so the animation is a little more limited, but it's still beautiful. I still find it beautiful today. And that the ending arc kind of concludes quickly, but that's sort of for a reason, because the writer of the manga series kind of needed to end it quickly because he was going through a lot of depression, and he kind of couldn't deal with the day-to-day of writing manga, because if you know anything about manga writers, it's like 20 hours a day you're writing, like 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and he just couldn't deal with it. Like, it was getting to the stress and shit like that was getting to him, and he couldn't handle it. And so it's pretty sad because like he ends up writing a note. He ended up writing like a little note when he ended it saying like, I ended it because like I felt like I was gonna die if I kept doing this, and he like apologized for ending it because he was like sorry for ending it for all of the fans. And it kind of makes you cry sad a little bit, because you're like, man, this dude like really wanted to like finish this story.
He put his like basically life into
this story, and you can feel it because there's like parts in the story where like the characters are just like frustrated with like what's going on around them and how like the shit just keeps hitting them and they can't deal with it, and you're like, fuck, man, like this is him just like putting himself into the story. And one of the other reasons I love this story is because there's 4 main characters. There's a couple other characters, but these 4 main characters are the primary characters of the series. Just like Hunter x Hunter, it has 4 main characters. But these characters you kind of are with the entire series. There's Hiei, Kurama, Kuwabara, and Yusuke. Kuwabara and Yusuke are both same age. They're both in high school. Kurama is around the same age as them, but not really, because he's actually a demon who was a demon and then like got captured, and so before he was murdered, he transferred his soul into a baby, and with the hopes that he would then one day become strong enough to like escape and like go back to the demon world. And then you have Hiei, who is a demon. He's a straight up demon, and their interactions are so amazing. Like, all the characters have a cadence with each other that is like unique. Like, the way Yusuke talks to Kuwabara is not the same way he talks to Kurama, because Kurama acts like he's the most mature one. He's like tactical. He like thinks about plans and shit like that before he does anything. He's very calm and like, but when he gets angry, he gets fucking angry. Like, but he's not someone who would like yell at somebody. He's someone who would just like say, I'm about to fucking kill you. And he just like fucking kills them. And then Hiei is like a fucking little shit. He's like an asshole, but it's fucking great because the way he acts. Like, it's amazing, all their interactions. It's such a fun show. The first arc, I would say, is kind of a little bit rough to get through because like they're still trying to figure out what's going on in the story. Like because they base it a lot off the manga. In the manga, the dude's trying to figure out what he's doing with the story. But once you get through that first arc, it gets so much better. And when you watch the Dark Tournament arc, I've rewatched it recently. You just want to keep watching the next episode because you want to see what's going to happen next. And the stakes when it gets to the end of that arc are just so high that you're just like, I want to fucking see him take down that motherfucker. I want to, it's amazing. And even the villains are pretty great too. They're not one note. They have depth. They have, their own reasons for why they want to do things. It's great. I've talked a lot about Yu Yu Hakusho because I love Yu Yu Hakusho, but
clearly.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Number 2.
So for my number 2, I have Hunter x Hunter.
Okay. That's surprising.
Yes. So, and the reason why I put Hunter x Hunter as number 2 is, as much as I love this series that we have been watching, I haven't finished it yet. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the main reasons why I did put it as a number 2. After I finish it, it might change or whatever it might be. And And we've spent, like you said, a lot of time on Hunter x Hunter in this episode and in past episodes because we have been watching it for some time now. I think for me, the biggest thing that I like about Hunter x Hunter is kind of similar to what you said. Whereas it doesn't spend too much time on one arc where it gets boring and kind of starts dragging. It kind of keeps the pace moving. And even when it's going in and out of arcs, it's very seamless. There's always a transition period where you can clearly see the direction that the series is taking. Everything is methodological, or whatever. I can't speak at this point in time, but you know what I mean. It follows a direct sequence based on either the characters or the next story that they're going to be going to. So everything kind of really ties into everything, even from the initial Hunter x Hunter exam. Whereas you have the first arc, the Hunter x Hunter exam, and Gon's main reason for this is he wants to become a hunter so that way he can find his father. That is carried over into the following arcs where he, not so much when the second kind of like sub arc when he's going to rescue Killua, but in the third one where it's kind of, they are still fighting and they're Heaven's Arena.
Yeah.
But it's still his overarching goal to become this hunter, to get money or to go to Arc New City so that way he could
yeah, he's trying to go to York New City because he's trying to like...
My brain, I lost train of thought.
Yeah, because he has a goal where he's trying to get through like each area because he feels that if he gets to when he goes to Heaven's Arena, he wants to fight Hisoka because he doesn't feel he's strong enough yet to be able to, he doesn't feel like he's developed enough yet to be able to meet his father. You know, he knows that he needs certain skills. He knows that he needs money. He knows that he needs talent, and he's not ready yet. Yeah.
But even I feel like the Arc New City arc is like a setup of the following arc that's going to
it definitely
succeed. Or to succeed it. So it's very seamless in a sense of it doesn't stay on that specific arc for a long period of time to where it gets stale or becomes uninterested. The characters, the amount of growth even right now in the beginning of the whole entire series, I feel like has definitely grown a lot. I'm interested to kind of start to look a little bit more hopefully at Kurapika to see kind of his whole story unfold a little bit more. I think the character that we haven't really seen the most of right now is Leoria. And I don't know if we'll continue to explore him in the coming arcs. I feel like he's probably the one that's least explored. But in the same sense, I'm still continually interested to see what is happening. Usually at this point in an anime, I kind of like lose interest and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this and I don't really care enough to kind of finish it. Hunter x Hunter is different in that sense where we finish like one episode and I'm like, okay, are you playing the next one? Like I need to know what happened. So it's easy to get through. At this point, it has like a lighthearted type of banter between the friends and just the chemistry and the overall feeling of the arcs and between the characters is really awesome to see. I know that you have talked about how Hunter x Hunter kind of takes a turn for the darker end of it. So I'm interested to see how these like lighthearted characters turn into, I guess what you would call like darker characters. So I think that's kind of piqued my interest a little bit to see kind of where the downward spiral starts to happen. But yeah, and I'm also interested for the next arc for, you said it's for Greed City, right?
Greed Island, yeah.
Oh, Greed Island. To see if he actually meets his father. So
yeah. We will see.
We shall see. So definitely we'll continue to watch the series, probably continue to talk about it on future podcasts as we kind of trek through the 140 some episodes. So
Yeah.
And number 1.
Yeah. So some of you may already know what my number 1 is.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I haven't been very coy about it, but this is kind of my chance to go into a little detail about it. So my number 1 is Cowboy Bebop. This wasn't always my number 1. For a while, I liked Cowboy Bebop, but I didn't love it. So this show was airing around the same time as like Outlaw Star, so it was like I think early like 2001 or something like that on Adult Swim. This show was airing, and I'd watch it, right? Like I liked it, but I didn't get it, because Cowboy Bebop isn't a show about. It's not like Yu Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter, where you follow like these younger characters and they're trying to like grow, right? It's the opposite. Cowboy Bebop is there's adults. They've already had their stories. They've already, everything that's happened to them for the most part that made them who they are is done. That already happened before the series even started. What you're seeing in Cowboy Bebop is them. It's very episodic in the sense that it's a self-contained episodes where they meet people in every episode and they do not carry on to the next episode. It's them going on adventures because they're bounty hunters and they're trying to, in every episode, basically catch a bounty. And so they meet characters and they interact with them. And through each episode, you start learning more about these characters, these main characters. For episodes 1 and 2, I think, you only have Jet and Spike, the 2 main characters, for those 2 episodes. Then episode 3, Faye comes along. And she basically stays with the group for like the rest of the series. And then I think in episode episode 2, Ein appears. That's the dog, but I don't really count him because he's a dog. And then I think in like episode 8 or 9, you meet Ed, who's the last member of the group. The first 3 characters are all adults, right? They're all, as I said, they've already kind of been through their stories. And Ed is the only child. Like that is it's a girl. She's a hacker. She's the only one who's a kid, and she kind of serves as the comic relief throughout the series. So, because otherwise the series would be kind of dark and bleak, because it does explore some heavy topics, and throughout the series you start learning more about these characters' personalities as they interact with other characters. There's episodes where you learn about their past, because they do explore them and what led to who they are. For each one of these characters, there are episodes where you learn more about them, who they met, how they became who they are. And it's as I said, it's not a show about kids. It's a show about adults and what it means to be an adult and all the shit that you have to deal with when you're an adult. And that's why, like, I've watched this show like 4 times. Surprisingly, that's the only number of times I've watched this show.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
Yeah. First time, as I said, was when I was like in my like early teens. Didn't really get it, Second time I watched it, I was in college, and I liked it more, but I still didn't get it quite. Like, it became higher in my list, but for me it still was like, okay, this is good. Like, this will maybe be my top 10. And then I watched it a few years ago again, and this time it felt different because I was like kind of like in my mid to late 20s, and these characters related a lot more to me then, because they would all kind of have seen some shit. They'd already been through some problems, right? Whether it's heartache or whether it's been through just shit with other people, and it feels a lot more relatable to someone who's been through shit in their life, who's had people that have died in their life, everything like that, who's seen things. And the ending is pretty well known. You don't know it because you aren't in the community, but if you were in the community, you would know the ending. So don't even bother Googling it, because the ending is very well known. And it hits a little bit more when you're older. There's my favorite episode to this date, after rewatching it a couple years ago, and I watched it again recently, is episode 13, Jupiter Jazz. And I love this episode because it explores this character who is who's a soldier who fought in this war. It's a two-parter, actually. It's like episodes 12 and 13. And it explores this character who fought in this war. And they're not related to Spike, technically, or any of the main characters. They're related to the main enemy of the series, who appears in only like 5 episodes in the series. 12 and 13 being 2 of those 5 episodes. And that character is related to Spike. Right? They know each other. And this soldier was basically like left for dead by the villain. And he's trying to kind of go on with his life, and he is essentially trying to set up a situation to kill that villain because he feels like he needs some closure. And this dude's been through some shit. Like he was abandoned at the war, he was captured by enemies, and he was experimented on where he was like implanted with hormones where he became like a transgender person, right? Like he had breasts and stuff like that, and he would like dress up as a girl in some situations, but like his entire reason for living was essentially to murder this dude. And it's interesting because it explores like there's this one side character in the episode who's like this like chief, like this like, you know, Native American person. He's not Native American because he's on fucking some other planet. Mm-hmm. But anyway, who in the beginning of the episode 12 and towards the end of episode 13 is like telling this story about, you know, how there's this lion, right, who is trying to find peace, who is fighting endless battles and just is looking for peace. And towards the end of that episode, the guy is like killed by the villain, and Spike, you know, is trying to chase after the villain, and he sees him, and the guy says, the dude who's you know, getting murdered, he's about to die, he's like, I want you to put me on this ship and send me home to this planet where I fought my wars, because I need to go back there before I pass away. And the guy says, well, Spike goes, you're not gonna make it. And he's like, I want to at least just be there on the way. So he puts him on the ship, sets him off, and of course the dude dies before he gets there. But it's pretty sad because like that's where they repeat the line for like that Native American guy about like how it's this dude who's trying to find peace, and that's all he wanted. And then they flash back, they show the dude on the ship, and he's like smiling, like it lets you know that he found, you know, his peace in death. And then that's where they play my favorite song in the entire series, which is Space Lion, which is an amazing song because in every episode of Cowboy Bebop at the end they play the same song except for episodes 13 and the last episode. And that episode they just kind of fade out to like the stars, and they just they show the ship, and then they just go into the stars, and then they just play that song in the credits, and it just gets to you when you watch it because you're just like, fuck.
Is that the saxophone song?
Yes. I love that fucking song because it just makes you feel a lot when you see it because you're just like, fuck. So yeah, it's a great anime. I haven't nearly talked enough about it because I don't want to waste forever, but just put this in perspective. This is a 90s anime, but it feels so like not like any other 90s anime. The animation is fantastic. The fight choreography is amazing. The soundtrack is still loved by like so many people, and it's only 26 episodes. It's never going to have a sequel, and I hope it never does because it doesn't.
Weren't they going to do like a
live action?
Yeah, live action of it.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, hopefully it never sees the day of light.
Yeah. But yeah, it's only 26 episodes. There's also a movie that they made afterwards that takes place between like episodes like 22 and 23 that is also very good. So I would highly recommend this series. I if you haven't seen it, I don't know how you haven't seen it if you like anime. That's all I can say. Like it's like one of the...
Maybe they're living under a rock.
It is like one of the anime that people recommend to people who haven't seen anime to get them on the bandwagon. It is the most unanime anime because it's just like every episode has a different genre feel to it. There's like horror, there's like space western, there's heavy metal shit. There's like all this different genres, in it.
So it appeals to virtually anybody.
Yes. And the music in those episodes is that type of genre too. The amount of music in this series is incredible. So yeah, watch Cowboy Bebop. It's fantastic.
I'm sure we'll be having more conversations about Cowboy Bebop in the near to distant future. So
yeah. So what's your number one?
My number one is Weathering with You.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about it on when I mentioned the other movie. What's it called? Your Name. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I feel like I liked Weathering You over Your Name is mainly the storyline for this one. I thought it was, well, number one, the picture in this, the animation in this is again fucking phenomenal. It's awesome to see the different shots and the different animation techniques and different things that he uses in this movie. It's beautifully done. And again, the music is fucking fantastic. So if anything in theme related, comparing these two different things, they are both up there in terms of animation and music is amazing for both of them. I liked this one. I like the storyline a little bit better, I think, in this one than Your Name. This one also was really cool because there was like Easter eggs in this one for Your Name as well. It kind of tied this one and Your Name a little bit into like a nice neat bow. It brought back some of the characters that were in it, and it was a nice surprise to see. So if you guys haven't seen Weathering with You, this is a show or a movie, about a boy who essentially runs away from home, and he goes to Tokyo.
Yeah, I think it's Tokyo.
So he goes to Tokyo, and he runs into this orphan girl because her mother has passed away and she is living on her own right now. And because the boy ran away from home, he doesn't have any money, doesn't have anywhere to live, and he runs into this girl. Now, at the time in Tokyo, it is in the rainy season where literally all it does all day, every day is rain. There is no sun, there is nothing whatsoever. And the atmosphere and the general feeling of the movie, it just seems like the people are sick and tired of rain, kind of like how we're sick and tired of being in quarantine. It's how they feel about the rain. So because it is the rainy season, people just want to see sunshine. And when this boy comes across this orphan girl, we find out that she can manipulate the weather. And what do they call her? Sunshine Girl?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah, they call her or something along those lines, dealing with sunshine, because she can, for a short or brief period of time, stop the rain in a radius of whatever it might be and bring the sunshine to the area that she is in. Now, she knew that she can do this type of ability, but when she comes in contact with the boy, he kind of persuades her to do it as a profession because they both are needing money to live on their own, and they just want to kind of like earn some extra cash. So they set up a website and say that for X, Y, and Z, you can pay the girl to essentially bring sunshine to whatever it might be. So people were bringing sunshine for weathers or just for weddings, to just go and play at the park, just to get a reprieve off of the rain. So they start doing this, and the girl starts to realize that there's something happening to her the more that she does this. And the more that she uses this ability, she realizes that her body is kind of disappearing in a sense where it looks like it's turning into water and it's becoming transparent. So they're trying to figure out what is actually going on. And in the meantime, the boy that is the orphan, or the boy who ran away. Sorry, guys, I literally cannot talk. The boy who ran away, who he's staying with, was the guy and another girl. They're kind of going on the hunt for what is this Sunshine Girl? Like, how did she come about, and what is she all about? And they find this guy who tells them the legend of the Sunshine Girl, who, in order for
The ring.
yeah, but I don't know if is it
No, yeah, don't spoil it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't really want to spoil it, but he basically tells them the legend of the Sunshine Girl and talks about her origin and what her main purpose in life is. And the guy tells, obviously, the boy who's staying with him the origin of the story, and he doesn't want to believe it. And they keep on going and continue to fulfill these different types of sunshine to bring to the people of Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, they don't really adhere to the legend per se, and they quickly realize that they probably should have more than anything. And I'll stop it there because that's where it kind of starts to spoil the whole entire overarching plot of it. But I would say this storyline, it's the chemistry between the runaway and the orphan is fantastic. They start out as friends almost, and it kind of almost develops like a romantic relationship. In a sense where they care so deeply for each other that they don't want anything to happen to this other person. Now, the girl, actually, the Sunshine Girl, has a little brother, right?
Yeah, little brother.
Yeah, so they also develop a bond between him and the little brother, and just the way the story unfolds, it kind of does like a complete 360. And again, at the end of this movie, I was sobbing. The story is just fantastically crafted in a sense where it kind of comes full circle, and it gives you a sense of like it's like a breath of fresh air almost, like once you're finished with this movie. And it's just one of those movies that you can continually watch again and again and fall more in love with it, I think. I think we've watched it now twice and probably due for another rewatch pretty soon.
Yeah.
So Weathering with You was definitely my number one.
Yeah. We'll see how things go as she watches more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm kind of surprised, but we'll see. Yeah, I think the next episode we're going to try to go back to the normal.
I will do my very best to watch the series that you gave me.
Yeah.
And I won't say what it is because I don't want to ruin it. But I watched one episode.
Yeah.
And at least it's kind of interesting at this point, so.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much you can get out of one episode, but sure. Yeah, but in otherwise, I have a couple other ideas we can do as well. I kind of like changing things up every couple episodes
I agree.
To do something different. It kind of makes the formula not feel as stale. So we hope you enjoyed this episode.
Definitely.
If you want to check up on us for updates, we're on Twitter at Warren Lovecast. We're also on Instagram at Warren Lovecast. I am on Twitter at Mr. Space Lion. We also have a Discord now, which is in the link to our Twitter. I can also add that to the link for this in the podcast notes. And that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us again in our kind of chop of going a little bit off script.
Yeah. I will try and add this list somewhere, but I don't really want to spoil it right away, so I'll probably give it a couple days, and then I'll probably upload it to Twitter with like the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're interested, check out those top 5 that each of us listed in case you haven't seen them.
Yeah, and then also if you guys have any suggestions for things that you think either Mike and I will enjoy together, or if you think I'll enjoy it or Mike will enjoy it, you can always shoot us an email, and our email is
warrenlovepodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Or even if you guys have any questions, or if you have any kind of thoughts or whatever it might be on a show that we might have talked about, feel free to always send those our way, and we'll definitely love to read them out on air.
Yeah. And with that, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.